Hey, how's it going, guys? Mr. Boss for the win here, and in today's Red Dead Redemption 2 video, we are going to be finding out what happens if Arthur chooses to go back for the money, but then decides to change his mind and follow John. So a couple of you guys on my Facebook page asked me to try this, and if you're new to the channel, we like to try really fun experiments in Red Dead Redemption 2, trying some wacky things or some interesting scenarios. Sometimes they lead to some really cool results. And this got me thinking. I remember the first time that I played Red Dead Redemption 2, and when I reached this moment in Chapter 6 where you have to make the decision, are you going to go for the money or are you going to stay with John? I literally had to pause the game because it only gave you like 3 seconds to decide. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is like the biggest moment of the entire game. You got to give me more than just, one Mississippi, 2 Mississippi before I decide what I'm going to do here. And so I had to pause the game and I was like, okay, if I go with John, it's probably going to be the good ending. But if I go for the money, am I actually going to get the money, which would be a ton, considering it's from Blackwater and beyond. So I was thinking to myself, what if in the moment you made a decision, but then you're like, oh shoot, that's not the moment I want to do. Wait a minute, John, I'm coming with you. Or maybe it's vice versa. You went with John and you're like, never mind. Let's go back for the money. That sounds way better. So I wanted to see if you could do this experiment. So the reason we actually have this choice at the very end of the game is all thanks to Abigail Marston, because she actually takes Dutch's key and she wears it as a necklace around her neck. During the final mission of the game in Chapter 6 in the mission Red Dead Redemption, she gives Arthur this key and ultimately gives him a choice.
If you're headed back there, Arthur, take this. I don't need it anymore.
What's that?
There's a chest in them caves, in the back to the left, hidden under a wagon. Dutch's chest. It's all our money. I know John told you I knew where it was.
Abigail Roberts.
Always was a good thief.
That you was. Yeah, get out of here.
So it's not until a little bit later on in the mission when this choice is presented to the character. John and Arthur are trying to escape the Pinkertons, and what happens is their horses are shot as they're escaping, and basically John says, you got to make a decision. Are you coming with me or are you coming for the money?
Come on, brother. Let's go. Give me a second. Come on. Push, Arthur. Thank you. Arthur! Come on, Arthur. Yeah. Let's go. Well, what about the money? Abigail gave me the key. I head down there, I'm dead in 5 minutes. I got a family. That's more important. Maybe you're right, but... you want the money? You head down. I gotta go to my family.
Now, before we go on any further, I'm going to show you what happens if you decide to go with John and help him escape, and then I'll show you what happens if you decide to go for the money.
Arthur, just make the call. I'm coming with you. I'm gonna get you out of this bullshit if it's the last goddamn thing I do. Come on. Here. Take this. And this. And get out of here. I'll see you around, John Marston. Be safe.
So this is where the game expects you to go your own separate ways. Now, what's interesting is, like I said earlier in the video, you only get like 3 seconds to decide on what decision you're going to make there. Not very long at all. And by default, the game makes you go with John. So if you set your controller down and you do nothing, the game will take you up the mountain with John Marston. So here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to see if we chose to go for the money, could we change our mind and go back for John Marston? So that's what I did. As you guys can see, instead of continuing to walk down the hill, what I did is I headed back up the hill. And you can see that our horses are still there. They're both dead because they were both shot. And I tried to follow the same route that John Marston followed. He sort of went up the hill and up and around, and I just sort of decided to go in that direction. However, as I was heading in that direction, something pretty interesting happened. I was getting further and further away, and I passed where the Pinkertons had actually shot at us on the top of the hill. I couldn't find John Marston, and then the very infamous, fade to grayish, blackish, white screen pops up, and I knew I was going to get a failed message, but this literally made me laugh out loud. The failed message was, the money was abandoned. The money was abandoned. That, to me, is just a funny phrase to say. How can money be abandoned? I don't know. For whatever reason, that just made me laugh. It might not make you laugh, but when I saw that, I was like, really? That's the reason why it was failed? Not something completely different. But I wanted to try this again. Maybe I had just gone too far. Maybe I went a wrong way or something like that. So this time I ended up going sort of up towards the mountain where Arthur and John would originally go if they decided to leave together. And when this happens, I noticed that Rockstar sort of keeps us within a boundary. You guys can see the area between where we are and where Beaver Hollow is outlined in this sort of yellow fog. And this is the area in which we have to stay in. If we go outside of this area, or I should say too far outside of this area, that's when you will receive the mission failed. Now, you still can visit the hill and the cliff and the mountain in which Micah and Arthur would eventually have their confrontation, and where Arthur and John would eventually say goodbye to each other.
All right, Arthur, come on, let's go.
You go.
Keep pushing, Arthur.
No. No. I think I've pushed all I can.
Come on.
You go.
We ain't got time for this, not now.
We ain't both gonna make it. Go. Now. I'll hold them up. Here. Just take it. You ain't no use to me now. Ain't no more time for talk. Go.
Arthur.
Go to your family.
Arthur!
Get the hell out of here and be a goddamn man.
You're my brother.
I know. I know.
But you can't go much more farther than that. In fact, you can sort of explore the hills and you can start yelling at Micah and Dutch, but nothing will ultimately come about from that. So is it possible to change your mind once you have made the decision if you're going to help John or go back for the money? The answer is no. And it's interesting because, like I said earlier, Rockstar doesn't give you a lot of time to make that decision. And I know for a lot of newer players or people that have never made this decision before, it is kind of tough in the moment because you have to literally weigh out 6 chapters worth of decisions in 3 seconds. And that's not necessarily easy to do. And I know in the case of myself and others, you likely paused and thought about it, weighed the pros and cons, and then made your decision. But in real time, they don't give you a lot. And if you feel like you made the wrong decision, you would have to completely restart the mission or go back on an old save if you wanted to try this again. Now, just because I was curious and because we were going back for the money, I wanted to figure out if there were any more experiments that we could do once we ultimately had the money itself. So you can grab it, but what's interesting is you can't set the money down. So what I was going to try was seeing if I could actually leave the cave from that back exit, the one that John and Arthur ultimately escape out of a little bit earlier on in the mission. But once you pick up that bag of money, it is stuck to you. You can't get rid of it, you can't drop it, which means there's only one way out of the cave, and that is through the front, where of course we know we ultimately get ambushed and stabbed by Micah, and then a fight commences. So overall, this is a pretty fun experiment, even though nothing radical came about from it, like the fact that the game doesn't let you change your mind once the decision is made. We did find out a couple of things, like the very silly abandoned money thing that happens, and the fact that John disappears. Like, you can't see him once he goes over the mountain. He vanishes. He is gone. So I found that to be kind of interesting too, that there's no way to catch up to him, even though, it's less than 10 or 15 seconds between when you say your last goodbyes to each other. So I thought this was a pretty fun experiment. If you guys have any other experiments like this that you would like me to try, you can let me know in the comments down below, or better yet, reach out to me on my Facebook page. I'd love to hear from you guys down there. If you did go on to enjoy this video, though, a like rating would, of course, be awesome. And subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are new, or you like daily Red Dead Redemption 2 videos like this. With all the way, guys, like I said, thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.